final presentation of PISAI Module 2 course about environmental and ecosystem services for sustainable agriculture. To start out with, what is sustainable agriculture and why are we interested in it? Let's start out with the global perspective. So there is currently happening a clash between agriculture, our agricultural practices and the biophysical limits of our planet, planetary boundaries in other words. So planetary boundaries are a safe operating space for humanity, and here you can see how the different, what are the different biophysical limitations. There's climate change, biosphere integrity, biogeochemical flows, etc. The green color indicates a safe operating space. Yellow color is a zone of uncertainty, so there's increasing risk of some bad things happening. And the red is very risky zone with high risk of crossing, or we have already crossed the planetary boundaries in the red dimension. And here, the little black dots are the contribution of agriculture, and we can see them basically everywhere, especially in biogeochemical flows and genetic diversity, also in land system change. So agriculture does have a huge impact on our ecosystem. And the agricultural development paradox is very related to this problem, how we have increased our agricultural productivity and intensified agriculture, but it hasn't gone together with the research what we have about the sustainable agricultural practices. So the changes that have happened are not supported by the scientific facts. So that was mostly about the environmental and ecological sustainability, but there are also more dimensions to it. So no agricultural practice can be sustainable unless it considers altogether the social, economic, and environmental sustainability. We'll come back to this later. And what we've been 3 weeks here in Isan studying agriculture here, because most of all farms of Thailand and cultivated area of Thailand is located in here, almost a half. So it's very, very interesting for us interested in agriculture. The environmental realities of Isan are challenging. There are the least fertile soils in the whole country. It's suffering of salinization. Water supply is dependent on rainfall mostly, so there are no other sources of water to irrigate the fields. And obviously the changing climate, and those are just some examples. Socioeconomic realities are also kind of challenging. There are 2.4 million people living in poverty in Isan, and it has the lowest GDP in Thailand, and GDP per worker in agriculture is lower than in any other field of work, for example, industry. And more and more young people are leaving agriculture.
From the situation, we are interested in 4 main points. First, we would like to know about what are the conditions within which farmer and farming economics, social and environmental. Second, what is the diversity of farming system in Isan? For example, what kind of solution in this area, history, kind of farming system, crop, livestock and soil and biodiversity. Next, how does farming affect sustainability in Isan? And the last one, what is the future of sustainable agriculture in Isan?
To answer for this question, the methodology we use in this study to few location in this study. We are interested in northeast region of Thailand and selected in Roi Et province and Si Somdet district, PISAI sub-district. For study and collecting data for farmer in two villages, including PISAI and Nong Sang village, by studying to observe the landscape, soil, water, and wild vegetation in that area to divide the agroecological zone. After that, we made the questionnaire which we used for interviewing the farmer about this story, type of crop, method of production, and return of and investment. In terms of soil assessment, we want to study about soil sample biodiversity and soil quality analysis for use to support and explain the result of the study.
Okay, and this slide, we will talk about the agroecological zone of PISAI and Nong Sang village. And the white line show the total area of PISAI and Nong Sang village. The total area are around 13 and 141 line. And for the transit representation, we can separate three tribes in this area, consists of inland village and lowland, plateau and hill. For the inland village and lowland, this area near the dam, so this area available water all year and can share the water to community. But the village near the dam leaks of the flooding. And for the plateau, this area is the most of area for cultivation. But is for the irrigation for long bean, tobacco, and watermelon. So this area can planting variety crop. And this area better for the water for buffalo or cattle. And next is the hill. This area near the tropic forest. It's not good for the paddy field, but it's good for the pasture for cattle and buffalo. So the villager bring the buffalo and cattle to this area.
And then a little bit history of PISAI and Nong Sang. 1962, our government built a dam, but it's only available for farmers in Nong Sang who are cultivating near the dam. 1969, farmers began to cultivate cassava, and they were slowly replacing cattle by machinery. 1980, farmers began to cultivate watermelon, and 1989, farmers began to cultivate long bean. And 1999, government began to help farmers make bonds. And 2000, first boreholes were made. And 2009, government gave support for farmers to aquatic animal farming like freshwater shrimps and fish. And nowadays, just meat and sticky rice are the main crops, and cattle are only used
This slide shows the topology in Ban Nong Sang and Ban PISAI village. We divide into 4 types. For this picture, show the type 1 in intensifier through pigs production, not through agriculture. This type for the area is this land less than 6 right per land unit. They have no double cropping. For the little land, they use for the pigs production and aquaculture. For the land is not based of intensification. For the intensification through aquaculture or pigs rearing, they have the grain inland. For the production only for the sale, they have no cattle. For the example farm, Miss Rabia in PISAI village, they have 13 sow plus pigs containing more than 100 kilograms. And the second example is Kun Kamon in Ban Nong Sang village. They have 4 rice per land unit. Such as they has Kun Kamon, they has 13 rice for culture some fish business. The title is the agricultural intensifier. The title need to have more than 8 rice per level unit. For the in this area, need to have bond or the irrigation water. It means the in the agriculture area need to have the canal from down, something like that. In try to have the 0.7 of cattle per line in agricultural areas. For the intensification through double cropping, such as tobacco, watermelon, and jasmine flower. For the example farming, Kunpat, he has 3 rice per level unit. He has 28 rice of rice. He has 0.33 cattle per rice, around 7 cattle. The second one is Kun Song Wang in Ban Nong Sang. He has 3 rice per level unit. Such as he has 28 rice of rice, 8 rice of long bean, and 0.28 cattle per rice, around 10 cattle.
In Turkey is big land owner party letters. They have more than 20 rights per labor unit, and they rent out or use laborer for some activity. Don't have double cropping and little or no cattle. Produce the rice for home consumption, such as Mr. Kamsai. They rent out land 20 Polai and own land Polai. Miss Yuwadi rent out 25 Lai, own land of 5 Lai and 6 cattle. And the last one, Taiko, is preparing retirement of agriculture. They preparing retirement and move to life only with mechanization for type 2. They still go little cassava, but in the future also. Example, Misty. They have 2.5 of cassava, 1 line of long bean. In the period, they was cultivated of more double cropping, 1 pond in old land and 10 line of rice.
For data economic surveys, we have collected from PISAI and Nong Sang village. Then I divided by 3 groups. First, rainy season, drought season, and irrigation zone. And divide by 2 factors. First is water and second is soil. So I will start from rainy season. Rainy season, they have 2 types of soil. First is like clay soil. they can grow it two types. Rice or rice. First, sticky rice and jasmine rice. Sticky rice, they're planting for house consumption. Then jasmine rice, they're planting for only sale. If you see you of rice here and river here, so it makes sense because they focus jasmine rice more than the sticky rice. And here, the price of input is lower than sticky rice because the jasmine rice they have a modern method more than the sticky rice. For cassava, the cassava then is not is less more than rainy season. So look at the input. If they have money, they will plant the long bean. Also the labor. But if they have not much, they will choose cassava. But also the installation of them like cassava and long bean year by year for fixing the nitrogen. For our season, we have two choices for drought season: tropical and long bean. Tropical is better because they have labor productivity more than the long bean. But also, the farmer have to put more input for the irrigation zone. These zones have water for years because they have underground water and water from the dam. So, but one thing here, labor very much here because we collect from 1 year and the price very high here.
What is soil quality index by Biofund tool? Biofund tool is a tool for assess soil health in an agricultural system. For Biofund tool, we measurement by three types, key function. The first one is soil aggregate stability. For the first one, the measurement about aggregate stability test. For the second one is the mechanical test and visual evaluation of soil structure and quality TSS. For the next function is carbon transformation by laminars, and the second one is permanganate oxidizable carbon or chemical proxy, and the second one is the basal soil respiration. For the last function, they measurement about soil diversity by tropical soil biology and fertilizability. Is can count SPF, and the second one is CAP. For the first result for the soil aggregates. Soil aggregate stability, the existing behavior of soil structures, they manage two radio for measurement. The first one is surface and soils. For the measurement with three plant species, yes, rice, cassava, and jasmine. For the results with aggregate stability, cassava gave the best result, followed by jasmine and rice. And for the inside below 2 centimeters, rice gave the best result, followed by cassava and jasmine. For by the function test, the measurement about water infiltration is flow water into the soils. For the cassava gave the best results, followed by rice and jasmine, because cassava field is sandy soils and sandy soil is function for beneficial and microbial. And for the last one is PISAI. PISAI is measurement about assessing of soil structures. For this treatment, soil structure quality of soil is in the line SQ2 is cannot expect, to SQ3 is first. So score in this slide. For this result
result of soil diversity, we observe two types, TAP and TSBF. TAP, we set a TAP for 1 week in every pot. TSBF, we dig the soil, divert in soil into 3 layers and count the number of insects in each soil. The sensor index is a measure of diversity which takes into account the number of species present as well as the relative abundance of each species. The value of sensor index rank between 0 and 1. 0 represents infinite diversity. 1 represents infinite diversity. 0 no diversity. The table shows cassava has lower diversity and rice has distinct diversity.
For the slide show soil quality index by crop and functions, this slide show overall variety functions. For the blue line is biodiversity, and for the purple line is soil structure, and for the gray line is carbon. We measuring this three species for the cassava, jasmine, and rice. For the cassava, get the daily results followed by jasmine and rice.
So we stand again here in Isan with the important activity of agriculture that we were looking at here. Remembering that 45% of all farms in Thailand are here in Isan, and 45% of all agricultural land that's cultivated by area is also here in Isan in Thailand. So again, an important activity for us to investigate. Looking at why farmers are doing what they're doing. We're really trying to understand what the conditions are and what that leads to certain constraints and certain impacts that farmers have. So our questions are led by the understanding of what the interactions among the farming practices and the sustainability of those practices in Isan here. So this leads us to our discussion of the value of sustainability. So as Milka presented in the beginning, we can't have sustainable agricultural practices without balance of our natural environment, our social constraints, and our economic constraints coming out in a way that we are equally or equitably balancing the values on these pieces for a sustainable system. So we set out to do that. As my classmates presented, we have the values of the land and the environment. We asked questions about the soil quality, about our water availability and our weather and climate, looking at the biofunk tool, our climate data, speaking in units of soil quality, carbon structure, soil structure, precipitation, temperature, really understanding then the result of how environmentally sustainable, or a measurement in some regards of the environmental sustainability of the system. Then we know that our farms and our farmers have values that we measured in economic terms of our cost-benefit analysis, asking how efficient the systems are, how productive they are, speaking in terms of kilograms produced per rye, in Thai baht, in productivity, in labor units, to get an understanding of our economic sustainability, which is built upon the system of our environment that provides for that. And then finally, we know that our communities and our villages have values that we asked questions and looked into what the government's supporting, what are their future plans, how is the family project moving forward based on historical progress and importance or needs for the future. So in understanding this through the interviews and timelines, we could see results measured in units of land and manure shares, fertilizer, water access, irrigation, other things tangentially of ownership and rights, again, towards the value of a social sustainability in our understanding of the system. So overall, why we're doing what we're doing as farmers is to improve these
situations to balance the sustainable aspect and to come out on the positive end in regards to each of these three sections. So, moving forward, we understand that our project has some limitations. It's hard to make precise measurements in a context, so we'd like to collect more data and have more tools to synthesize more of these results and really dig into those three pillars in other ways, those three pillars of sustainability. There are also some challenges with our data collection. The interview process is challenging just through understanding what questions we ask, and then through the process what is being asked of the farmers themselves. We had to make a number of estimates on our economic assessments because those can be really challenging numbers for farmers to understand completely, or for the different questions we ask can come out in different ways. And then finally, there were some challenges of soil quality measurements. We had low number of replicates, low number of samples. It would be nice to improve our understanding through more samples in more places and more crops. So that leads us to future directions. It would be really interesting to know more about the trade-offs in the system. So how are our investments in ponds and tractors and equipment giving us returns, and is that a good investment? And then what are the trade-offs of using things like fertilizer and pesticides for our sustainability outcomes? Is it environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable to be using these different chemical or different sort of intensification practices? Then also asking questions of what policies and government supports are available and what are those impacts. So we know we have pond subsidies, what's the flood support or catastrophic damage infrastructure, as well as insurance, as well as infrastructure and dams. Are those good investments? Finally, we understand a challenge of there are youth leaving the communities to work elsewhere for more money and people aging out of agriculture. So who's going to be providing our food can be an area for future research and how we provision our food in Isan. Leading us to what the future of sustainable agriculture in Isan is, we don't know, but we have now a better understanding as a group of the outcomes around how we are looking towards providing for a sustainable agricultural base here in Isan. In a final interview with the head of the village in PISAI on our very last day, we asked about what the important needs are, what the future of the village might be as far as agriculture goes, and she asked for things, or was looking at improving water access through wells, for the village. Also looking at the sort of food security piece of making sure people can produce the food that they need throughout the year. And then finally, a bit of the sovereign, the power of the people to grow their own food and to have the right to maintain their own systems, I think was another aspect, because they were talking about using less fertilizer and growing more food for themselves and more diversification of crops. So I think the future could be looking towards more sustainable practices as we are here in Isan today. Thank you.